Hey guys, JD here, and this is the ultimate comparison between the Yamaha FX SVHO WaveRunner and the Kawasaki Ultra 310 jet ski. I purchased both these skis brand new off the showroom floor. These were not sent to me by one of the manufacturers. I maintain, service, repair, and upgrade these skis completely on my own. They had never been to an outside mechanic or dealer other than the day they came off the showroom floor. So I'm going to provide you with the ultimate perspective on not only what it means to ride these machines, but what it means to maintain them and service them. So from the engine to the jet pump and everything in between, I'm going to go over how these skis are similar and what makes them different. We're going to cover some detailed technical aspects of these skis not covered anywhere else on YouTube. So grab your popcorn and let's go. Arguably, the most important part of every personal watercraft and boat is the hull. In this segment, let's review the differences and similarities between the hull and top deck on the Yamaha FX SVHO and Kawasaki Ultra 310. Kawasaki is known across the world for their venerable 22.5 degree dead rise fiberglass and gel coat Ultra hull. This hull is still made the old-fashioned way with hand-laid fiberglass. You can't get a more durable personal watercraft hull. Through multiple revisions, Kawasaki has strengthened and improved the Ultra hull over time. The Ultra hull's deep V design can be slammed through some serious chop and is the result of nearly 2 decades of research and development. Even the top deck on the new Kawasaki Ultra 310s is made from hand-laid fiberglass. So what does this mean for offshore riding? The mass of the hull, coupled with the design and dead rise, makes this a fierce competitor for offshore riding. It cuts through waves with ease, where other watercraft tend to ride over the top. This heavier and larger displacement hull does mean that the top speed on flat water may be a little slower than some of the lighter, flatter competitors. So without reason, there's been some debate online about what these Kawasaki's are actually made of. You see this right here? This is fiberglass cloth. There's no hiding it. This is what the top deck is made out of. It's not SMC, and you can tell because of how rough the inside of this is. If you work on these machines, you tend to get cut up a little bit. You can see the cloth right there. See that? So the top deck on these Kawasaki Ultra 310s, this piece is made of plastic that I just knocked on actually, but the deck is hand-laid fiberglass. Extremely thick, no flex. Even this part right here, you could stand on. This just goes to show you the evidence that the entire top deck of this is also from hand-laid fiberglass. This fiberglass cloth is laid on a mold and then it's heat pressed. Comparatively, this is the lip on the Kawasaki. You can see it's actually rolled and then it's filled with resin, the entire inside here. And these hulls are absolutely solid. I mean, absolutely solid. After experiencing numerous issues with the Nano XL hulls on the Yamaha FX series, Yamaha switched to SMC in 2022. The switch to SMC was a move in the right direction, making these Yamaha hulls more durable for offshore riding. Nevertheless, the hull and deck are still painted with an automotive grade finish, not gel coat. Some Yamaha owners report delamination and peeling even on SMC hulls, although personally I have not experienced these type of issues. In addition to the change in material, Yamaha continues to tweak this hull with adjustments to the sponsons and ride plate. The FX hull is a fierce offshore competitor with many title wins under its belt. While the Yamaha's painted SMC hull is not quite as thick or durable as the Kawasaki's fiberglass and gel coat hull, this hull is extremely thick and performs very well in the chop. Alright, so let's do that knock test here on the Yamaha. Also really solid. Hear that? Really. The hull is, this SMC hull is very competitive with the Kawasaki fiberglass hull. Really impressed with how solid the Yamaha hull is. Now for comparison, let's take a look at the inside of the Yamaha top deck. You see how smooth this is? This is Nano XL, the top deck on this machine. And the bottom of the hull, this is SMC. Now it is very thick, but you can see how smooth it is. You can't actually see any fiberglass cloth because the SMC is a different method than hand-laid fiberglass cloth. The big benefit of the Yamaha is that it's so smooth inside that your hands won't get all cut up when working on the machine. It also has a little bit better fit and finish, although I'll point out that this lip looks pretty rough here. I mean, this is, if it was me, I would have had like a rubber piece over this, or the finish of this I would have made a little bit nicer, because you could see that it's a bit inconsistent as well. But this top deck, being Nano Excel, you hear that? Look at that, the flex. The FX does have a lot of flex on the back deck here. And I don't know if I'm picking it up, but if you have one of these and you jump up and down right here, now the center part is actually pretty solid, but you know, this portion of the deck right here has a lot of flex, and then the gunnels sound very hollow when you knock on them, at least at the rear of the watercraft. Towards the bow of the FX, the deck is quite a bit thicker. You hear that? The material for the front of the ski is a lot thicker. I wish that the entire gunnel was as thick as the bow portion of the ski. So you can see here that we've got the glove box compartment. The latch is pretty solid. Nothing remarkable though about how it opens and closes. And then of course we have all these plastics around here. I think the fit and finish of the plastics is pretty good, except you could see that the edge here is a little bit crude in my opinion, but overall I'm not too disappointed with the construction of these materials. So on the Kawasaki here, my entire rear deck is obstructed by this Ultra deck. The Ultra deck is all made out of black plastic, but it doesn't have a lot of chatter. It's kind of like a, I think it's like a polypropylene, like what they'd make automotive bumpers out of. It does have fiberglass top deck underneath it, and then of course all this, the gunnels, no flex anywhere. You cannot flex any portion of the Kawasaki with your hand, maybe with a dead blow hammer, but it does not flex like the FX at all. So with the Kawi, we don't have a center glove box. We have these gull-wing doors, and of course just listen to this latch. It's like a Cadillac door, these things. And in terms of the plastics here, the fit and finish is very good. The seams where they fit together is flawless. And you know, the one thing I'll note is that this plastic here, this comes with a big sticker from the factory. This tends to scratch. It's like a shiny plastic. This piece that I have here is fairly new, but this piece here does tend to scratch just from you rubbing against it. I would have used a more durable textured plastic. The rubber on the sides here is very nice, but it does have these little plugs that hold it into the body, and those can rip out fairly easily from what I'm told, although I haven't had too much of an issue with it myself. All right, so this is the hood here on the Yamaha FX SVHO. So it's a nice looking hood, but it's got some problems. You hear that? You hear that? The problem is that this has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different pieces of plastic. And when you're slamming up and down in the chop, this plastic tends to resonate. So the Ultra 310, for example, has a single piece hood. See, it's one piece of plastic. It has a lot less resonance than this multi-piece hood on the FX. You might not notice this on flat water, but when you're in the chop slamming up and down, I notice that the Kawi hood has less plastic noise. And some of you, modern cars, you touch the plastic. Some people that might not bother. For me, I'm very attuned to plastic noise. So the Kawi hood is a very thick plastic, and it doesn't resonate as much as the Yamaha hood. So for the Kawasaki, this is the entire front bonnet here. If you scratch this up, you're replacing this entire front bonnet. And then at the rear of the Kawasaki, you have this here. This is part of the Ultra deck, one big expensive piece. Something I love about the FX here is these replaceable bumper panels. You can see that just a couple bolts and you could change these out. So if these get all chewed up and scratched up, it's relatively cheap to replace these. And then we also have this replaceable part right at the back on either corner. All right, so my final impressions are that the Kawasaki has a higher level of fit and finish due largely to the fiberglass and gel coat hull. The Yamaha is very competitive when it comes to the hull. The top deck has a little bit of flex in it that doesn't sit too well with me, but I understand that they're trying to have a trade-off between weight and strength, but for offshore riding, you really want that extra mass of a fiberglass thick top deck. In terms of the plastics, the plastics are fairly noisy because there's so many different pieces all bolted together here, whereas the Kawasaki has fewer plastic pieces and they make less noise. The downside of the Kawasaki is it doesn't have these individual bumpers like the FX, so if you scratch up this front bonnet, you're replacing the entire thing. Same goes for the rear deck. The FX gives you these modular bumpers, which make it really easy and affordable to keep your ski looking nice. Averaging the weights of all models, the Kawasaki Ultra 310 is about 120 pounds heavier than a comparable Yamaha FX. A majority of this weight comes from the fact that both the top deck and hull on the Kawasaki are made from thick hand-laid fiberglass cloth and gel coat. The lighter weight of the Yamaha FX is due largely to the fact that the top deck on the ski is made from NanoExcel, not fiberglass. Also, the hull is made from SMC, which is lighter than traditional fiberglass cloth and roving, although I am impressed with the thickness of the SMC hull on the new 2022 and up FX. While both hulls perform very well in the chop, there's one thing you should know about each. The Kawasaki Ultra 310 rides a little bit low at the bow. This can be corrected by adding either a pump wedge or a ride plate. For the Yamaha FX SVHO, this ski tends to porpoise or bounce up and down, especially on flatter water. This behavior can be corrected by adding a ride plate and shimming it properly. Here's the lowdown. The Kawasaki Ultra 310 has thick fiberglass hull and deck and is coated in durable gel coat. The plastics on the Ultra 310 fit together well, don't make a lot of noise, and are truly very quality plastics. The deep V design of the Ultra's hull lends to its proven offshore performance. Looking at the Yamaha FX SVHO, the Yamaha features an SMC hull and NanoExcel 2 top deck. All surfaces are painted with an automotive grade paint. Modular bumpers are easy to change, but the Yamaha has noisier plastics that tend to rattle and creak when the vehicle is slammed around in the chop. Now, let's talk about the jet pump. Obviously, the hull means nothing if it can't be adequately propelled through the water. Both skis feature a 160mm axial flow single-stage jet pump, coupled with an 8-vane stator. The similarities between the two pumps, however, end here. For more than 30 years, Yamaha WaveRunners utilize a pump with a 3-part design. You have your stator housing, your wear ring, and then your exit nozzle. In 2020, Yamaha changed this design to get rid of the separate wear ring assembly. Funny enough, these newer Yamaha pumps look extremely similar to the pumps that Kawasaki has used for nearly 50 years. There's two key differences, however. The first being that the Yamaha pump has a replaceable wear ring. Also, this stainless steel wear ring is insulated from the aluminum pump body with a plastic liner to prevent galvanic corrosion. A second major difference is that on the Yamaha pump, the impeller is mounted directly to the drive shaft, meaning that when you remove the jet pump from the WaveRunner, the drive shaft comes with it. In my opinion, that makes these jet pumps a pain in the ass to work on. Often you need copious amounts of heat to remove the impeller, whereas on the Kawasaki's, you can just use an impact wrench and remove the impeller very quickly. Another key difference is that the cooling port on the Yamaha pump relies on a single channel cast into the pump body. This means that the engine, oil cooler, intercooler, and other components are all fed from one single cooling channel on the jet pump, while Kawasaki pumps have independent cooling circuits for each of those components. Another major difference between the Yamaha FX and Ultra 310 is that the Yamaha jet pump contains 2 ball bearings, whereas the Kawasaki contains 3 of a larger diameter. Having worked extensively on both these pumps, I prefer the design of the Kawasaki pump. I feel that the Kawasaki pump is built to a much heavier duty standard with thicker, heavier bearings and more of them, and the design of the pump itself hasn't been changed in nearly 20 years, which attests to the fact that Kawasaki got it right the first time. When you pull the jet pump out of the jet ski, there is no drive shaft attached to it. Instead, this Kawasaki 160mm pump contains an intermediate shaft within the jet pump that's supported by the 3 ball bearings. This means that removing and servicing the pump is extremely easy. Also, this pump features a large, heavy-duty, high-flow cooling block that supplies the oil cooler, the intercooler, and the supercharger with individual water cooling circuits, meaning that this engine can support extremely high horsepower and load without any modifications to the cooling system. There is one major factor about these Kawasaki pumps that I really dislike. The body of the pump is made from a very high-quality aluminum casting, but it's got an integrated stainless steel wearing. This wearing cannot be removed or serviced by the end user. It's pressed in at a very tight tolerance by the factory. This does not have a plastic liner like the wearing on the Yamaha. What this means is that if the ski is left in salt water or used extensively in salt water, the pump body and the wearing suffer galvanic corrosion, causing the pump housing to swell. This presses on the impeller and creates uneven wear within the pump housing. The integrated wearing is too thin to be machined, so the entire housing must be replaced. A huge benefit of the Kawasaki pump is that it contains 3 Japanese-made sealed ball bearings within its design, 2 on one end of the intermediate shaft and 1 on the other underneath the nose cone. At the end of the day, I do feel like the Kawasaki Ultra 310 has a much heavier duty pump than the FX. The FX having that plastic liner between the wearing and pump housing, however, should serve to extend the life of the pump in a saltwater environment, which is very important to me. So here's the summary. Both the Ultra 310 and the FX SVHO feature a 160mm 8-vane pump. The major differences are that the Ultra 310 pump does not have a replaceable wearing. The integrated liner in the Ultra 310 pump is known to swell when exposed to excessive amounts of salt water. The Ultra 310 pump does feature an intermediate shaft with a 3-bearing design and 3 independent cooling circuits to support an extremely high horsepower application. Updated just a few years ago, the FX SVHO now features a single body pump design with an integrated stainless wearing that can be replaced by the end user. The innovation with this wearing is that it has a plastic liner to prevent swelling and corrosion. Although the Yamaha pump does rely on a 2-bearing design, and the impeller is mounted directly to the engine's drive shaft. The Yamaha pump features 1 single cooling circuit integrated into the pump body. This means that higher horsepower applications or engine modifications require modifications to the cooling system as well. Now, let's talk about the engine and the supercharger. Both the Yamaha and Kawasaki platforms have been in production in one form or another for nearly 20 years. Both 4-cylinder engines feature 16-valve dual overhead cam design, but that's where the similarities end. Yamaha's 1.8-liter SVHO engine produces 250 horsepower on an 86mm bore and 78mm stroke. It's supercharged with an HKS centrifugal supercharger, gear-driven by the crankshaft and lubricated exclusively with the engine's oil. The HKS supercharger relies on a gear-driven one-way bearing or sprag clutch to drive its single supercharger impeller to create about 12 psi of boost at 8,000 RPM. Boosted air then passes through this rather small T-Rad intercooler before it hits the Mikuni 60mm throttle body. The Yamaha FX features a traditional downdraft style exhaust. This requires very little maintenance and does not require the use of an exhaust filter as found in the Kawasaki Ultra 310. The Yamaha also features coil-on plug modules with a direct connection to the spark plug and a separate coil for each cylinder. The Kawasaki Ultra 310 is powered by Kawasaki's 1.5-liter inline-4 310 horsepower engine with an 83mm bore and 69.2mm stroke. A massive, belt-driven, liquid-cooled Eaton TVS supercharger with opposing 4-lobe rotors and a dedicated oil bath generates 16.8 pounds of boost. The Eaton TVS supercharger does not have a clutch, but rather relies on a supercharger drive belt and tensioner system, internal supercharger dampers, and a sophisticated dual BOV system designed to bleed off excessive boost. Before reaching the 60mm Mikuni throttle body, boosted air travels through this massive T-Rad intercooler that features a dedicated cooling port from the jet pump. The Ultra 310 features a unique updraft style exhaust. This means that hot exhaust gases and steam exit upwards rather than downwards. This is due largely to accommodate the massive Eaton TVS supercharger. The Ultra 310 also relies on a traditional ignition system with spark plug wires and 2 remote mounted coils. Alright, so let's sum this up. The Kawasaki Ultra 310 is powered by a 4-cylinder 1.5 liter dual overhead cam 16 valve engine with an 83mm bore and 69.2mm stroke. It's got an 8.2 to 1 compression ratio and generates boost via a belt-driven, liquid-cooled Eaton TVS supercharger with a dedicated oil bath. The engine also features a fabricated oil separator and dual BOVs, one that's vacuum-operated, one that's spring-operated. The Yamaha FX SVHO is powered by Yamaha's 4-cylinder 1.8 liter dual overhead cam 16-valve marine engine. It features an 86mm bore and 78mm stroke. With an 8.5 to 1 compression ratio, the Yamaha utilizes an HKS centrifugal supercharger to create 12 pounds of boost. This supercharger is driven by a sprag clutch and receives its lubrication from the engine's oil pressure. The FX also features an oil separator, although it's integrated into the engine casing. The Yamaha does not come with a BOV from the factory. Now, let's talk about the electrical system. It's critical that your electrical system is functioning properly if you want to get out on the water. And while this isn't a consideration that most people look at, it's something that absolutely needs to be on your radar with today's modern personal watercraft. Let's start with the redesigned Kawasaki Ultra 310. For this model, the wire harness was completely revamped. Now note that Kawasaki never had a single issue with their wire harness prior to 2022. But on the new Kawasaki Ultra 310s, wire harness production was moved from Japan to Mexico and Thailand. And what that meant is a major drop in quality of the wire harness itself. Personally, I've had to replace this harness 3 times in 3 years, and in my opinion, that's absolutely unacceptable. This is evidence of what happens when companies attempt to outsource and reduce costs. Now, I do review all known defects of these models in a later segment, but I just wanted to bring this up now because it's relevant. Alright, so looking at the Kawasaki's electrical system, the Ultra 310's battery is located in the very front of the ski, underneath the front compartment. Individual fuse blocks, as well as a spare fuse for each component, are located down in this front compartment as well. The start solenoid is also located in this compartment. However, the other main relays are located next to the ECU in a side compartment. Kawasaki made this harness as long as the ski itself, and it's completely ridiculous. To power all the high-tech components, including the visibility lights and the rear camera, they needed this ridiculously complicated and long wire harness. This is one part of the Kawasaki Ultra 310 that I despise. Now let's talk about the wire harness in the Yamaha FX SVHO. I'll start by saying this is a perfect example of how an electrical system should be laid out. The only downside to the Yamaha electrical system is that the battery is located within the main compartment. That means it's exposed to excessive heat generated by the engine. But the FX SVHO really does have a fairly short harness, and that's because the entire electronic component box is located right adjacent to the engine. Yamaha thoughtfully placed the relays, the ECU, and the main fuse block, in addition to other sensors, all in one centralized location. Unlike the annoying individual fuse blocks in the Kawasaki, Yamaha has provided us with a legitimate fuse block, complete with a tool to change out the fuses on the water if you need. The relays are all present here as well in this centralized location, as well as a main fusible link. Yamaha's even put the fuse locations on the back of the inside cover, so you don't make any mistakes. The Yamaha also features a liquid-cooled voltage regulator. This cooling circuit permits the voltage regulator to maintain a more consistent operating temperature. In summary, the Kawasaki Ultra 310 does feature a dedicated battery compartment. However, the individual fuse blocks are difficult to access. Also, the wire harness itself is overly complicated and very difficult to route through the hull. The Kawasaki also doesn't have a dedicated fusible link, and the fact that the fuses, the relays, and the ECU are all mounted in different locations makes this a real pain to diagnose and service. Now let's talk about the Yamaha FX SVHO wire harness. The Yamaha's harness is thoughtfully laid out and a perfect example of how a personal watercraft wire harness should be constructed. The only issue I have is that the battery is located in the hull, which means it's exposed to excessive amounts of heat, which ultimately will reduce its life. The Yamaha, however, has a very nice dedicated fuse block that's laid out very well organized, centrally mounted, and has the relays, tip-over sensor, and ECU all in one centralized protected location. The Yamaha also features a liquid-cooled voltage regulator. Stay tuned for the remaining parts of this series. In part 2, I'll talk about the reverse system, display and gauges, and seat ergonomics. In part 3, I'll cover maintenance, defects and issues, dealership experience, and company culture. And finally, in part 4, I'll cover ocean handling, the stock speed test, stage 1 speed comparison, and my final thoughts on both skis. Thanks for watching, and see you next time. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button and subscribe for more exclusive jet ski content, only on JD's Waterworld.